Hi, I'm Kira Layton, the Makerspace Educator at Discovery Children's Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today for our at-home discovery, I'm going to teach you guys how to make a mask with sewing. Now, I know for a lot of you guys, maybe you haven't tried sewing before, so I'm making this a hand sew only mask. I know there are a lot of masks out there that use sewing machines, and if you're a more advanced sewer, this isn't going to be the video for you. But I do want to use this as an opportunity to teach people how to sew. It's a very useful skill to have. You can repair buttons on your clothes if they pop off, fix a seam if your t-shirt starts showing a little hole here and there. So sewing is a great skill to have, and hopefully I'll be able to do a couple more sewing videos in the future so you guys can practice your own sewing so you can eventually do more and more advanced projects. So for today, because we're making masks because of the COVID-19 crisis, I just want to talk a little bit about how to choose your fabrics. Now, the CDC is saying at this point any mask is better than no mask at all. But if you do have a couple fabric choices, I want to show you something called the Windowpane Test to tell you how suitable your fabric is for trying to keep out microscopic particles. So I've got a couple different fabrics here. I've got the bandana fabric, which if you look here, it's according to the Windowpane Test, which is when you hold it up to a bright light, you can see a lot of the light shining through and a lot of the fibers. So this is not the best choice for a mask. However, it is better than nothing. So if all you have is bandana fabric, go ahead and use it. Keep in mind, the more you layer it, the more effective your mask will be. So you could even make a couple masks with bandana fabric and layer them to make them more effective. A couple other fabrics I have here. I have some flannel I had laying around from an old craft I had, maybe some pajama fabric. As you can see, this is better than the bandana fabric, but it's still getting quite a bit of light through it. I can still see a lot of those individual fibers, so I could probably do better. Again, if this is all I have, this is certainly better than the bandana fabric and would make a viable choice. Now, the two best fabrics I happen to have here are some heavyweight flannel and some quilting cotton. So let's take a look at the quilting cotton. If you hold that up, you can definitely see that it is blocking out a good amount of light. Just a tiny bit is getting through. Maybe you can see a couple fibers, but a pretty solid choice all the way around. And then for this heavyweight flannel, I think this is the best one I have. The light is barely coming through, just a couple spots, so I think I'm going to use this one today. It'll be a more effective mask. So here are the materials I have. This was my fabric of choice, and I was able to find a thread that I think works pretty well with that. And I measured my face. You'll see that I measured from ear to ear over the bridge of my nose. It was about 11 inches. And then from the bridge of my nose to my chin, it was about 5 inches. Now, I'm going to double up my fabric up and down from the bridge of my nose to my chin. So I'm going to multiply 5 times 2, and that's going to give me 10. So right now I'm looking at 11 by 10. Now, when you're sewing, you want to leave something that we call seam allowance. So I recommend giving us about an extra inch on each side. So that'll give us 12 inches instead of 11 across my nose. And then that 10 plus 1 is going to give us 11 inches for the doubled up fabric from the bridge of my nose to my chin. So let's start by measuring that out. You can either use your piece of paper to draw out this rectangle and then trace it onto your fabric. I'm just going to use my ruler for this. So let's make some room here. Put that down, boy. Now I like to draw on the back side of my fabric so that way I don't see it. So let's start, let's see. This will be from the bridge of my nose. I'm going to do it this way instead. Double up at the bottom. Yeah, that'll do it. So here I've got my inches side, so let's measure that here. And that right there is about 12 inches. I'm just going to make a little mark with my Sharpie. Right there at 12. And now I'm going to do the 10 inches. Wait, no, not 10, 11 inches down from that so I can start to make what looks like a rectangle. So 11 inches right there. And now, if everything stayed pretty straight, yep, that gives me a perfect 12 right there. So it's exactly what I wanted. I'll still put a mark over here so I know where I'm cutting. Just be careful. We're dealing with Sharpies here, and Sharpies bleed through fabric. So if you're doing this on a nice table, you might want to put maybe a piece of cardboard or something underneath it so that way it doesn't bleed the table underneath. So I'm gonna very carefully try to draw this line here. Not too dark, just gentle. All right. So here I've got the rectangle that'll roughly be the shape I need to make my mask. All right, now get the nicest scissors you possibly can and start cutting. Now you can put the rest of your fabric away and you've got a nice rectangle. So this is roughly what my mask is going to end up looking like. So anytime you do a seam, you actually want to sew your seam on the inside. And then I'll show you what we do afterwards. So we're gonna flip this around. And give it a nice fold. All right, so now you're going to get your needle and your thread. Needles have eyes, and that's where we feed the thread through. So if the edge of your thread is fraying a little bit, you can always give that a trim, quick trim, so that way it's more likely to fit through your eye. So then take your time, try to fit it through the eye. So now you've got it through the eye of your needle like this. Sometimes it takes time. To make sure my mask seams are strong, I'm going to double up my thread. This isn't always a good option for everyone. Some people will tell you that to not double up your thread, but this is what I'm choosing to do because I find it easier. So really long piece. And then you're going to cut the end and then knot these two guys together. One of the tricks I once learned for doing this is to wrap it around your finger a couple times and then, not too tight though, you don't want it to pull on your skin, and then you use your thumb to roll it and then start pulling it tight. Now if you can find that the tail of what you were doing, pull that nice and tight, and there you've got a not a pretty knot, but there's a knot nonetheless. So to make a seam, I'm going to teach you guys a whip stitch with this project. So the way a whip stitch works, the reason why we put this knot in here is it's going to catch to make sure that it doesn't pull through our fabric all the way. So we're going to stab it through both pieces of fabric. And if your fabric is thick like mine, this is going to take some time. So don't worry about it taking time. So whip stitch is you stab it through once, then you go around to the other side and stab it through in the same direction. Now you want to make sure when you're close to the corner like this that it keeps going in one direction. Take your time pulling it through so that way you can avoid some tangles. So that is a whip stitch. Let's go ahead and try that again. Pull it through. Here we go. So I'm used to sewing, so it's okay if your first couple stitches are a bit messy. That just happens. The more you practice stuff, the better you get, and you can even see with me, I'm not really worried about this being too pretty because this is going to be on the inside of my mask. And we are just going to seam these two open sides together. So now that I'm at the edge of my seam, I'm going to pop this through both of my pieces of fabric and pull it through just like I would, like I'm starting a stitch. However, I'm keeping a loop here that I'm holding with my thumb. I'm now going to put my the tip of my needle through that loop I made and pull it tight. And now it's knotted off again. I'm going to stab it through again, push it through, make another loop, and double knot it. So just like I did before, put the tip of the needle through the loop, pull it tight. I like to do things in threes. All right, and there we go. Now this tail is too short for me to do any more sewing with it, so we're just gonna trim that off. So now we've sewn our seam all the way across. Now we can flip it inside out. There's my seam from the outside. It ain't pretty, but you can see it. There you go. So I've made 2 little 1/2-inch incisions on each side, or cuts, I mean. It's a surgery. And I'm going to try my best to cut as straight as I can to cut out this middle strip. Only the top part though, do not cut the under part. All right, so now I've got my needle rethreaded, and I'm going to use the string I have, put it here, and then I'm going to pin this guy from the outside in. So this time I'm going to teach you guys how to do a running stitch, which with the whip stitch, when we would like pull it out and whip it around, that's why that was a whip stitch. So I always like to hide my knot before I get started, so this area under here probably won't be seen in public. I'm gonna pull that through till my knot catches, just like that. And now we can take a look on this side. If you do want to worry about how pretty this looks, focus on the outside. So I'm going to, instead of whipping it around like we did before, when I stabbed it through, now I'm going to stab through right next to it to make a short line like a dash. You might not be able to see it. So this is what it looks like, just a little dash, a little line of thread. You stab up and through, and basically all you do is repeat that pattern over and over again. Up and through, up and through, up and through. And just so you don't get bored watching this for like 30 minutes, of course, I'm going to give some time-lapse video for you. Just keep practicing those stitches. Practice makes perfect, and your first time doing anything is not going to be great. So don't worry, if this is your first time sewing, nothing is going to be beautiful right off the bat. And making anything takes time and patience, and also takes persistence. So even if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you wanted it to, keep going. Try your best to make it better. Everybody makes mistakes, and we all learn from our mistakes. All right, and we're finally at the end. So check to make sure your rope can slide back and forth. That's going to make this a lot easier. And here is what my completed stitch looks like. It's not the prettiest, but it's a good practice of a running stitch. That is a running stitch. That little dash in and out, that's a running stitch. This is what it looks like on the inside. I didn't hide my seam or anything, but there it is. Let's pop this through one more time, and I'm going to knot it off just the way I did with the whip stitch. So poking it back through, and this time I'm gonna nestle my knot into this corner here. Pull it through. Then before I pull it all the way tight, I'm gonna put the tip of my needle through this loop, pull it time once, do it at a different angle, twice, and make sure it's super secure. Stab it through, put it through the loop 3 times. And I've got a knot now. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side with the other part of the string. I think a mistake I may have made on this is that maybe I didn't need to keep this white thing here. Maybe I should have just trimmed it off. But I'm gonna just roll with it. We're gonna make it work. So if your tail got too short, time to reload your needle again, pop it through the eye. The good news is I have a lot of extra thread left over here, so I'm just going to go back to the end and knot it again. Roll it through, pull it tight. Kind of an ugly knot, but there it is. I can always hide that ugly knot on the inside. All right, maybe a couple more stitches. All right, and time to start knotting things off. So I'll pull it through. Now to knot it. I'm going to stitch it through, someplace hidden, like the back of my mask. Needle tip through the loop, pull it tight, 1, needle tip through the loop, or needle tip through, pull it through the loop. Did a funky finger work there, 2, and 3. There is a knot. All right, so here is a basic mask with a whip stitched inside seam here, and then 2 loops for our string with running stitches. So you're gonna pull those strings through all the way, and of course, always make sure if you're touching the inside of your mask that your hands have been washed beforehand. So I've pulled out the loop all the way. Looks like this, pretty side on the outside, ugly side on the inside towards me. I'm gonna put this big U loop around the back of my head, drop the plate down in front, and then I'm going to pull these up start to line it up over my face. And if you have someone to help you, like a mom, that'll totally help too. Now pull it up over, so it looks like this. Now you're going to tie it to the top of your head. And it's gonna start gathering up the fabric. Make sure it fits nice and tight, and I'm sure my hair looks crazy wacky right now. And there you have the basic face mask. So one of the variations you can do on this is cut just on one side of this, not through both layers, but cut an incision on the side of your mask in order to make a pocket for a filter. I'm not gonna do this at this time, but I am gonna show you how to make a space for putting a pipe cleaner in as a nose bridge. And again, I'm only cutting through one side of the fabric, not on the other side. See, no holes on this side, just on this side. And I made 4 little incisions, 2 wider apart and then 2 close together in the middle. So now what I'm going to do is use my pipe cleaner here. Going to weave it through the fabric here. Whoop. And then pull it through. Now I didn't want to sew it into my mask because when you wash this, the pipe cleaner could rust if it's still inside. So there we go. I just weaved my pipe cleaner through the holes, and now it's a loosey-goosey nose bridge clip. So thank you so much for joining me for this hand-sewn face mask tutorial. I hope this was a good project to introduce those of you who've never sewn before to sewing, and that this gives you a permanently reusable mask that's a little more stable than the no-sew face mask. Also, this is just a practice. If you're able to practice and make some better face masks, go for it. There's also a lot of tutorials available online. This was just intended to be a beginner's tutorial for sewing your own mask. Now, as the makerspace educator, one of my big things is always it's tough to make. It's very difficult, and sometimes it can get frustrating with how much you fail. So I always encourage people to fail forward and learn from those mistakes, and even if you end up with a face mask, that's not the prettiest thing in the world. Keep trying. This is a great time to practice making things if you can. So signing off from my at-home makerspace, this is Kira Leighton with the Discovery Children's Museum. Bye.